Despite Western governments defining Russia as a major security threat challenging the very foundations of democracy and the rules-based international system, African leaders hold strong to their belief that there is something good in Russia. Is there something good in Russia? Professor Gbade Ojo of the Department of Political Science, University of Ilorin, is on State Affairs. Professor Ojo, it's good to have you on State Affairs.
Thank you very much. It's been a long time.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Tinubu wants to go to war.
Yeah.
You want him to go to war?
I do not expect him to go to war. Ordinarily, when ECOWAS leaders meet, my expectation is that the leaders who have allowed critical stakeholders to advise them, like the Director General of NIA, who is an eminent scholar, Professor Oust, like technocrats in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right, and experts in civil-military relations, to guide the ECOWAS leaders on what options that are available to them. If really Nigeria is the big brother in Africa, it will not be in the interest of Nigeria to go to war in Niger. And it is not enough to advise Nigeria not to go to war, but to convince Nigerian leaders why they should not go to war. The primary focus of Nigeria's foreign policy since 1960 is that Africa is going to be the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. That is the interest of the continent, all countries in Africa, not just ECOWAS. So if there is a problem like this, Nigeria need to weigh options, whether there should be military confrontation or not. And when you look at the countries that are under military rule in Africa today, you look at the map of Africa, they are on the same line, which means coup is contagious. It is good that Nigeria is making noise, threatening Niger, so that it does not affect another country, so that military body don't think it is a normal thing to terminate democratic government. But there is no way you can protect democracy if democracy cannot guarantee potable water, if democracy cannot guarantee job for the youth, if democracy cannot guarantee peace and stability and development, the military will come in. And the military in Africa, they have seen themselves, number one, as agent of national integration. That's number one. That politicians are already immersed in ethnic quagmire. So that ethnicity is a fundamental problem in Africa, and the military boys believe they have been trained to ensure national integration. But when we discover that they cannot manage the system, they are as corrupt as politicians too, and that second wave of democratization came, getting independence from the military, aside from independence from colonial masters. These military boys again are now looking at politicians as being super corrupt, that they are not helping the system, in a way that elections are badly rigged and there is no way to change them. Aside from Nigeria, where Obasanjo tried third term, that did not work. Other countries in Africa, you see sit-tight syndrome. How will a father leave a stage or be killed and the son taking over? It happened in Togo. It happened in Chad that you mentioned. The son took over from the father. That's not the way to run a country. It's not the way to run a country. Elections have been badly rigged. So where you have tenure, the case of Niger is very ridiculous. The man there, the tenure is 5 years single term. It's on the 10-year rule. And before the expiration of the 10 year, the man is trying to amend the constitution to extend the stay. So the military boys will not be happy. They are not happy. So the truth is that I am not advocating that Nigerians should go to war. That's number one. But Nigerians should not be silent, so that the the virus of coup don't spread beyond Niger, and that ECOWAS, we look at the mandate of ECOWAS, Economic Community of West Africa. What is economic in going to war with Niger? What is economic in preventing a military taking over in Niger or wherever? The truth is that looking at sovereignty in international law, Niger is an independent country. Niger has the right to govern themselves. If America is advocating democracy, if Russia is on the side of Niger, the question is, what kind of democracy is Russia practicing? What kind of democracy does America want Nigeria to protect in Africa?
The discussion has started. That is Professor Gbade, a professor of political science. He is from the University of Ilorin. Gbade is a former chief of staff to the then governor of Oyo State, Abiola Ajimobi. He was also Ajimobi's special advisor on political matters during Ajimobi's first term. It's about politics and power. What has ECOWAS done? ECOWAS has taken some measures already. One of the measures is the closure and monitoring of all land borders with Niger Republic. And ECOWAS has reactivated border drills. So as we speak, Nigerian soldiers are having sessions at the border, waiting for orders to move in. ECOWAS has also cut off electricity supply to Niger Republic. What is the implication of that? How come Nigeria supplies electricity to Niger? Was there a deal during Gowon's time for Niger not to dam its own parts of River Niger so that Nigeria would generate electricity? So if Niger dams its own part of River Niger, what happens to Kainji Dam? Has Tinubu broken the deal? ECOWAS is mobilizing international support for the implementation of its actions. ECOWAS has also prevented the operation of commercial and special flights into and from Niger. ECOWAS is within its power. As we speak, there is blockade of goods in transit to Niger, especially from Lagos and Eastern Seaport. Don't forget, Niger is landlocked, so it relies also on the ports in Lagos. ECOWAS is raising awareness among Nigerians, among Nigerians too, about the importance of the actions it is taking. And ECOWAS is using social media. Are you on social media? You should be there. ECOWAS is preparing a military intervention if the military stubborn boys in Niger remain so cooperative. Yes, Dr. Yemi Farounbi is on state affairs. Dr. Farounbi is a public administrator, a former Nigeria's ambassador to the Philippines. Dr. Farounbi, ECOWAS in action. Talk to them.
Yes, ECOWAS is mostly or flexing muscles, as we will say. I get Nigeria president and ECOWAS is again possessed by courage. The kind of courage that made them to abolish subsidy without necessary studies of consequences or provision or palliative to take care of the consequences. I believe ECOWAS is on that route. I believe that ECOWAS and indeed Nigeria president or the presidency ought to take a proper look at the peculiar situation of Niger. One is that Niger is contiguous with Nigeria, and the citizens speak the same language, share the same culture with a substantial part of Nigeria. If you've been to the north before, the so-called boundary, can you find it? The boundary that they want to police, can you identify it? I've attempted to drive by road from Sokoto before, and I suddenly found that we were in Niger. Because what had happened is that there had been a movement of sand dunes within 24 hours, and we couldn't identify the road again. Until we saw the gendarmes, I didn't know we've left Nigeria. That's the people you want to fight? And those are the people who will be part of the fighting forces from Nigeria. And don't forget that the states of Nigeria that are contiguous, Sokoto, Zamfara, and all of that, are victims of terrorists. Who are these terrorists? I expected that Nigeria would take a good look at what had happened in history. Assuming Niger was not sharing cultural and ethnic relations with part of Nigeria, assuming so, we've seen the very formidable army of U.S. being unable to defeat the Vietcong. They were humiliated.
In Vietnam?
Yes. We succeeded in Liberia because Liberians were divided. We have not seen that kind of division in Niger. We've seen the people on the street jubilating.
Yeah.
We've seen them applauding the military intervention. And I thought that anybody who has a little knowledge of international relations and international geopolitics would take a look. You've mentioned it, and very rightly, Professor, that the military regime in West Africa today, they're in the same belt.
Yeah.
None of them are the Arab countries. That they themselves share, if not ethnic, they share religious connection. And part of them are still suffering from this kind of interference. Libya is no longer Libya because some policeman of the world decided to invade the place. So when we decide to take this kind of decision, I was shocked because I thought we ought to know that the Nigeria that carried the brunt of the resources, of the cost, human and material, in ECOWAS is not the Nigeria of today.
What has changed?
Economy. We cannot, with a debt of almost 80 trillion naira, you cannot be doing what we did in Liberia. And we could do what we did in Liberia because Doe was on one side, Taylor was on one side, Johnson was on one side. We don't have that kind of situation. We don't have the kind of situation you have in Sierra Leone here. We're going to carry a burden of a war when we ourselves cannot feed ourselves. I thought we ought to have thought a little bit more carefully. I mean, like he said, there are experts in this country that could have advised them. Now, talking about electricity. When we were going to do Kenji Dam, we had to have an understanding with Niger. Just as we have an understanding with Cameroon. When they opened their dam in Cameroon, the whole of Yola, Adamawa get flooded, which we saw sometimes late last year. So we have an agreement with them to make sure that their management of their own water resources will not become a problem for us. We did that with Niger, because Niger can dam River Niger and generate its own electricity. We said, don't do that. We're going to have a Kenji Dam that had 12 turbines. And we need the water from the river Niger. If you dam it, then there'll be no dam. There'll be no electricity here. So we agreed to give them electricity free. So when you go ahead and breach international agreement because of temporary inconveniences, you become an unreliable partner diplomatically. Not only in West Africa, but in fact, all over the world. You begin to look at a country that democratically elected does that kind of thing.
The discussion is on State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. You heard the voice of Dr. Yemi Farounbi. Chisoma Nonsike Njoku, thank you for joining the broadcast. Are you watching on Edmondo Billow's pages? Are you watching on State Affairs page on Facebook? Are you on Splash FM Facebook page and you are watching? We are grateful. As you watch, share the broadcast. I can see Governor E.A. Graham's here. Thank you, Graham, for joining the broadcast. Akintunde Philip says, please tell Mr. President not to declare war against Niger. This is coming from Adedayo Raphael. He says, with the present situation in Nigeria, do we need to bring war to the country? Let's solve our problems first. Lanre Nuruddin Showmi says, thank you, Radio Man, for hosting Dr. Gbade Ojo this morning. The objectivity in his political analysis is always superb. This is coming from Ojemiwa Joy. He's saying, is it he or she? I don't know. Okay, Joy is normally she. Tinubu never know anything. Or now will you say that? No? Can you say president never know anything? He knows something that you don't know. Aremu Adekunle is saying, Edmund, tell Dr. Farounbi to call Asiwaju and advise him. So Dr. Farounbi, have you heard? Okpara Raymond says, Mahmoud Yakubu has put us in this shame. How? This is coming from Adebayo. He's watching from London. He says the war with Niger is uncalled for. Have you seen Nigerian soldiers demonstrating their military skills? But they should not dare us. Nigeria will run. Is that a right warning? You need food or you need war? Choose one. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
State Affairs with Edmondo Below is live. Splash FM 105.5 is live.